Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. So we're always trying to create the best question and answer game, like right from the beginning of the track when you're starting to write it, to give it this really solid foundation. And sometimes, at least me, I lose a lot of time trying to create the best question and answer game. And honestly, I've realized that some of the best sequences that I wrote to kickstart a track were made using one synthesizer and one really good sequencer. Sounds almost impossible, right? Well, let me show you in this video. But before we dive into this tutorial, if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a Patreon, leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or checking my preset packs and masterclasses on my Gumroad. Now that said, let's dive into this tutorial. For this tutorial, I'll be using Pigments because first of all, it's been a long time I haven't done any Pigments tutorial, and second of all, it has everything I need to create those sequences I'm talking about, but you can go with whatever you like as long as you follow the same principles. So I'm going to create an FM lead, which is going to be our main lead. For that, I'll use the wavetable engine, and I'll use a wavetable called Downer from the Pigments 5 wavetable folder in here. I'll set the wavetable position somewhere around in here maybe. Sounds good. Let's FM it with a ramp up modulator. Set it to ramp like so. The tuning, I'll set it to absolute. I'll take it one octave lower. The wavetable engine one octave higher. Now let's FM them. We have this. Sounding pretty gritty and electric as we like it. For the filter, I'll go with a high pass 24 decibels per octave filter. Let's give it some resonance. Sounding pretty nice. Now, let's go to the sequencer, and this is where the fun begins. First of all, I'll take off all of the randomizers, like so. Now we have this. So what I'm going to do now is create a groove that will kick things off for us. So I'll start with the gate length. I'll randomize it just to get a starting point. Now we have this. Let's change the gate length of some of these steps. And now what I'll do is follow a simple principle that I learned from Aja's Max for Life device. If you don't know it, it's called ARP Funk or Funk ARP. And basically what it did is you would create this 16 or 32 steps sequence, and internally it's going to randomize some of the steps. If I'm not mistaken, it used to randomize only the last steps. So what I'm going to do in here is lock, let's say, all of these sequences. I'll leave 7 and 8 and 13, 14, 15, 16 unlocked, right? And I'm going to randomize the gate length for these sequences. And the generation in here, I'll set it to auto-generate every 1 bar. So every 1 bar is going to change these values. See how every time it loops, we have different gate length, but only on 6 of these steps. So we have this consistent part that just loops, and we have these kind of ear candy, let's call them, that are randomized from time to time. So it's not fully randomized, because fully randomized sequences are nice, but they get boring sometimes. Like they just go all over the place and you can't control them. So like so, we have a controlled part and an ear candy part. I like to call it like so. Now, let's get back to the synthesizer in here, and what I'll do is randomize the cutoff. I'll use the second randomizer. It's just a sample and hold LFO. But if it's me in a track, not in the tutorial, because I want to make things simple for the tutorial, I would just take off this randomizer and modulate the cutoff manually, like so. But for now, let's keep things simple. Take the second randomizer again. Perfect. Now we have a really good main FM lead. Now I want to add the answer part, right? So this is going to be our question. Now I want to add the answer part. For the answer part, I want to create contrast, something that has nothing to do with the FM lead. So I'll turn off the FM lead, go to the second engine here. I'll set it to wavetable again, but I'll use a wavetable that I've created from my virus called Fibograin. Sounds like this. Now, what I'm going to do, I'll take this wavetable 1 octave lower, and I'll send it to the second filter. Perfect. Now what I'll do, I'll modulate the wavetable position just to give it some movement. I'll use the first randomizer, just like so. Perfect. Now we have a little problem. The first engine and the second engine are playing at the same time, and I want to separate them. And this is where the sequencer of pigments come in place. What I'm going to do in here, I'll use the velocity to determine which engine is playing and when. So when the velocity is at maximum, I want the FM lead to play, and when the velocity is at minimum, I want the grain virus-like sound to play. So let's set it like so. So the random or the ear candy steps are going to play the second engine, basically the one with the virus wavetable, and the fixed ones are going to play the FM engine. But because I'm going to apply randomization on the velocity of these steps, we're not always going to have minimum and maximum value. Sometimes we'll have 10%, 20%, 30%, and this will give us variation in the volume, and I don't want to have these variations. So to fix that, we're going to go to the combinate in here. We will use the third combinate because it's already on the remap function, and this is what we're going to use. I'm going to set the source in here to velocity, and now I'm going to remap those values. So everything from 0 to 50% is going to be minimum value, and everything from 50% to 100 are going to be maximum value. So now we basically have this like on and off messages. Check this out. Perfect. Now let's go to our synth engine in here. Let's turn down the volume of the FM. Let's take the comp 3 in here and make it modulate the volume of our FM engine. Let's set it to a value of 0.7. This is basically 100% volume. Now let's go to the second engine and do the exact opposite. I'll use the third comb in here to take the level down of the oscillator. And now we have this. Check this out. And now I want to make things a bit more interesting. So I'll start by adding some unison on the second engine. Let's add 4 voices. Let's detune them. So now we have this. See, now we've emphasized the contrast because one lead, the FM1, is right in the middle, mono, and the second one, the grain one, is spread in the stereo field, right? So it's giving this really nice contrast between mono and stereo, not only in the timbre-wise where one is FM and the second one is glassy. You know what I mean? Now I want to make things even more interesting and emphasize this contrast. So I'll go to the effects in here. First of all, I'll add an equalizer because there's a bit of nasty lower frequencies. I want to take them out. So let's add an EQ in here, and I'll take the low shift, just take it down like so. Now I have this. Now I want to give some character to the sound, and for that I'll use the multiband compressor in here. I'll use a preset called OPP. It's like wannabe OTT. Sounds really nice. Check this out. Now we have a shiny high end. I really like that. And now what I want to do is add a comp filter, but this comp filter I want it to play only when the glassy or the second engine is playing. So what I'll do, I'll take the multi-filter in here and I'll use the comp filter. I'll set it to something low like this, and let's give it some Q for now just to hear what it's doing. See, when the second engine, the glassy one, is playing, it sounds really nice, but with the FM, it's bad, right? So what I'll do in here, I'll take the Q down and I'll use the second combinator in here to open the Q only when the second engine is playing. So let's take it like so. Let's set it to negative value. So now we have this. Actually, I need to revert it. I'll set it to the maximum value where I want it to be. I'll leave the combinate to negative values. Now we have this. Now, the next step that I want to do is add a bit of movement to this glassy lead, and I'm going to do so by modulating the comp filter frequency, but just a tiny bit. So I'll take it down for now. I'll go to the LFOs. I'll use the first LFO in here. I'll set it to triangle. Let's set it to straight rate. Set it to maybe, 8 bars. I'll set the phase to 270. So it start minimum, goes to the maximum, and I'll set the retrigger source to free running. And now I'll use it to modulate the comp filter frequency just a tiny bit. So now we have this. Oh, it's actually on bipolar, so that's why I'm not hearing it. Let's set it to unipolar. Now we have this. things are getting really interesting now. Now, let's go to the second FXs in here. I want to control the dynamic a little bit. I'll add a compressor. I'll set it into limiting mode, attack to the fastest, fast release 2. I just wanted to catch the peaks and keep things, in place. That's it. So let's take the threshold till we have, nothing more than 5 dB of gain reduction. This is perfect. And now let's add a delay. I'll use the ping pong delay preset that we have. Now I have this. But now we have a lot of high end when the FM is playing. So I'll take down the low pass in here and I'll open it just like I did with the comp filter only when the glassy lead is playing. So you know what? I'll leave it open like so. Take the third combinate in here and close it using it. So now we have this. See how things are getting really interesting now because the contrast is even playing at the delays level. Some delays are brighter than the others, and this is creating a really nice movement in the sound and emphasizing this Q&A game. And we're still using only one synthesizer. Now, there's still two little things that I want to do to finish this patch. The first one is control the high end even further, but without really adding an EQ or a filter, right? Like a low pass filter. So I'll go to the synthesizer section in here, and the second filter, I'll set it to low pass gate. Now, this is a really nice trick to control the high end and give the sound a little bit of a plucky feeling without really adding a filter which is closing down and taking off all of the frequencies. Like in here, we'll just add a touch of control on the top end without really taking it out completely and then, give it this low pass filter feeling, if you know what I mean. So I'll take the level down in here. I'll set the timing to fast. I'll keep the mode on both to VCA and low pass. And I'm going to modulate the level using the second envelope. So now we have this. Right, and I'm going to add some movement to the sound. If I'll go to the envelope in here, I'll set the attack of the second envelope to 0. I'll set the decay to something really fast, like this. And I'll use the first randomizer in here to modulate the decay. I've used this trick in all of my preset packs for Pigments because I really love it. It gives the sound a really nice plucky feeling. And because we're playing a 1/16th note sequence, I like to add some variation to 1/8 from time to time. And we can do so in Pigments by going to the sequencer in here and using the third randomizer, which is binary, basically only on and off messages. And I'll ask it to modulate the rate of the playback of the sequencer. I'll set it somewhere in here. This should get us 1/16th and 1/8 note. Check this out. The rate is way too fast. Let's set it to maybe 104. Let's change the probability somewhere right in here. This should give us more 1/16th note than 1/8 notes. And maybe set the correlation somewhere right in here. See, now we have like bursts of 1/8 notes and it's giving the sequence a really nice groove. And what I'll do just to polish things, I'll get back to the envelopes in here. And when the 1/8 notes are playing, I want the decay to be longer so the sound won't stop in a harsh way because the decay is really fast. So I'll just take it like so, modulate the decay tiny bit. Now we have this. Perfect, and with the kick and bass, we'll have this. And we've just created a solid Q&A sequence that is the foundation of our track, and it took us, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. And what's really nice about this technique is that you can do it in other synthesizers like Serum, because you can remap the velocity. You just need a really good sequencer like the one in Pigments, and if you have Pigments, you can just use its sequencer to drive other synthesizers, right? You're not limited to Pigments only, even though I prefer using Pigments with its own sequencer, but that's just me. And now what we can do is start adding other synthesizers and expand the sequence and get the track going. So I have a little example here, let me show you. So in here what I did, I took one of the MIDI sequences from my third Pigments pack, and I left some blanks in the first sequence in the patch that we just created when this MIDI sequence is playing. And I've loaded a squelchy sound from the same Pigments pack called Leads Squelcher. And if I'm going to play both sounds together, we'll get this. Check this out. And we just got ourselves a really nice foundation for the track. And yeah, with this is the end of this tutorial. I really hope you've liked it. I really hope you've learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.